want to welcome everyone to our board meeting for USDB. We're going to get started. Want to talk a little bit about safety and emergencies. We have our exits. There's 4 doors here. In case of emergency, take one of them, and then we have to leave the building. We have they're easy to find and see. We have doors that will take you to the north and to the south, and restrooms are right here. So, in case of emergency. So let's get started with our meeting. Want to welcome those in the audience and staff and that, and so we'll get started. The first action item that we have, or the first thing we need to take care of, I'm seeking a motion to approve the March 8th, 2019 meeting minutes. Do I have a second? Second. Any discussion? Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay. Motion passes unanimously. Next, we're going to our public comment portion of our meeting, and we do not have anyone signed up, but I just want to check in our audience. Is there anybody that wishes to make a public comment? Oh, I thought Board Member Gravitt was going to go and make a public comment. No, we're in that point. Okay, I'm not seeing any, so we're going to move off of that item. Okay, next we have, under information on number 4, we have our monthly budget report, and Finance Director Carl Empey, you're going to handle that, so we'll turn that over to you.
Great, good morning. It's always a pleasure to walk in the plaza and see the daffodils and the tulips out there and know that spring is here. Our financial report is for the 8 months ending February 28th. Our revenues year-to-date are $25.4 million. Our expenditures were $23.3 million. So we had just about $2.1 million more in revenues than we did, and transfers from the state, than we did have expenditures. The number of students that we're serving is 1,471. Our balance in our land grant enrichment fund as of February 28th is $1,258,189, and in our donated funds, the balance is $1,172,124.66. The handout right behind that is all the detail that supports our total revenues and our expenditures. And then the report behind that is our enrichment funds. Of the approved projects that you approved back in May of $1,014,000, we have spent $643,149, leaving us a balance to spend before the end of the year of $371,000. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Questions from board members? Seeing none, please continue.
Okay, that's our financial report for the month.
That's it. I didn't see anything glaring.
No, everything is right on track. We are now entering those last few months, so we'll be doing some spending and catching up with our regular current expenses. Our payroll is right on where we want it to be, and that's about 83% of our total budget. So things are looking good. And I think Superintendent will be talking about our calendar for the spring and the budget preparation and whatnot. So we're busy doing that right now.
Okay, we do have a question. Board Member Janet Cannon.
I'm just looking at your enrichment fund project list, and I know that I've heard you guys talk about your online ASL course that is in development, and I see it's been allotted $40,000 and there are no expenses. So my question is, what is the status of development of that course? How's it coming? Is it not started yet? Or what's the delay? Could you respond?
Superintendent Coleman.
Thank you. That's a great question. It looks like we're going to only spend probably $10,000 of that this year. We contracted with a professor at Utah State to help with that, and this year he really emphasized a lot helping the teachers develop their own course materials to create Canvas courses so we could have that blended learning. And we're talking with the advisory council right now about next year maybe using some of our donated funds to resource that effort a little bit better so that we can build our course material a little faster and not take as long as it's ending up taking us, actually. So his capacity was a little more limited, and he's only charged us for the time that he's been able to do. And also we're looking at what we learned this year and how do we deploy that in a way that's sustainable and we can really get this thing done in the next couple of years the way it should be.
Okay, any other questions? We have maybe just a check online. I know Board Member Ellis is online. Is anyone else online? Well, that's what I got from my text.
Okay. So is Linda's not online?
Linda, are you online? Okay, that's just for our situational awareness.
Yes, I am online.
Okay,
Linda is
thank
online.
you. So that's good to know. I appreciate you coming on board. If there any problems, shoot a text. Okay, well, any other questions for Mr. Empey? Thank you for your report.
You're welcome.
Okay, next we'll have Superintendent Coleman go over the procedures for resolving parent concerns. So I'll turn the time over to you.
Okay, thank you. Board members, you may remember that last month we brought you a draft recommendation for kind of a pathway to resolve parent concerns if they are outside of the normal due process through IDEA. And that opens the gate wide open to anything that may be a concern, not just their child's education program. So we took a few minutes and you all gave very good feedback. We took notes and went back and incorporated your thoughts and ideas into this draft number 3. And Michelle was very helpful to us in drafting this. She and I spoke on the phone several times to make sure that we got everything that both of us had heard and put it in there. And this draft is the result of those items that you thought would be improvements to that draft. And we agree. It looks like it's pretty good now. I'd be happy to, if you want to go through line by line, that's fine. Or if you've already read it and you just want to approve it, or anything in between.
Okay, there's a couple procedural questions here. This is an actionable item, and before we dive into the middle of it and approve it, I need a motion to approve this draft. Well, this is draft 3. Get it on the floor, and then deal with questions or comments. But before we get into it, is there any clarifying questions that somebody might have before I call for that motion? So, clarifying questions. Are you a clarifying question before we get into it? Okay. Board Member Lisa Cummins, did you have a clarifying question? Okay, okay. These are questions. We're not adding it or changing it. These will be questions. Okay. Board Member Lisa Cummins.
Thank you. First of all, I wanted to apologize for not being here last month. We were in deep discussion with the health standards, and so I apologize. Just to be clear, if someone could tell me, were the parents who had concerns involved with this as well? Did they put their input in, or was it just on through our discussion on at the last board meeting?
This has not gone out for public
Okay.
input
So
and
no
comment. This is
other shareholders have inputted
yeah,
in
this
this?
is like an internal policy that helps guide staff and meeting what we think are reasonable. This is a policy that we're going to approve that guides staff in meeting certain expectations for communication.
However, I will add that we did receive public comment on it, and then subsequently we met with some of those who gave public input, and discussed this and several other issues. Just had a sit-down meeting with them and said, how can we talk and work together? And we clarified the intent of this, so there were no misunderstandings, I believe.
Okay,
Our-
great.
Our advisory committee's chair was here also in the last meeting as all this was being revealed and communicated with. But we haven't, as as our group, sought public comment. But we know it's been coming in, and
Great. Okay.
it's a guiding policy.
Good to know.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other clarifying questions? You're still on hold. Board Member Belknap?
Thank you, Chair. I guess one of my questions is on the 10-day response, are we talking about 10 working days or 10 days? That may need some clarity. Oh, it's in definition? Oh, geez. Gosh.
And
Okay.
we have our AAG Buse here too, so thank you for coming up.
Okay, and just a personal comment, I think 10 days is too long in this day and age. And then, have you thought about not, and maybe this is for the motion, but Chair, help me, of not putting steps, because it looks like you have to do step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, to be able to follow that. So could it be something along the lines, the following is encouraged in cooperation rather than steps? Because if I was a blue personality, I'd know I'd have to go to step 1, but I'm not. I would already be to 4, because I'm a red. So, just a thought.
Okay, AAG Buse?
I'm the one who suggested the 10 days, and that was in response to allowing them to have an opportunity to meet with the parents where they're spread out, and staff members that are going through the steps, like a superintendent, is in a different location. And so originally I had suggested wording that said meet with and respond within 10 days. But I'm open to your suggestions for that. I just wanted you to know that I was the one that suggested that, to provide opportunity not just for them to respond, but to meet with the individual and respond to the individual.
Okay. And if I might, and maybe we can, AAG Buse, you can speak to this. As I recall from previous conversations, the step 1, 2, 3, and 4, there's some key directions in there. There's the word encourage and also may, but it doesn't say shall, and it was a preference to try to establish a preference in trying to mitigate concerns, because if people came to us as their step 1, in order to truly mitigate the concern, we would be most likely going back to step 1, 2, 3. Can you speak to that?
Yes, it would be very dependent on the situation. There are some situations that the authority to resolve it does rest with the classroom teacher. And it would be most appropriate to help intervene by assisting in that communication rather than taking that, trying to solve a problem that really the authority to solve it is at a level below that. So there's no requirement for them to go through any of the steps, and the introductory paragraph states that they can introduce their concern at any step in the process.
In the queue, is there any other clarifying questions? Board Member Davis, do you have one? Okay. Board Member Belknap?
Sorry, one more. I appreciate AAG Michelle Buse telling us this. However, in here it does not say that. It says we'll respond to the parent within 10 days. If I have a comment or a question, I would like to know someone received my comment, and meeting with is very different in 10 days than responding in 10 days. So I still struggle with that 10 days without the meeting part being held.
Okay. I'm not seeing any other clarifying questions. Board Is this a clarifying question?
I'm struggling to know if it is or not. I think it is, yes.
Okay.
Otherwise, I would not have pushed
Board
my
Member
luck to
Lear.
say. Clarifying question. This is a question for Mr. Coleman. Can I ask him directly, or
Yeah.
do you want to?
Yeah, go ahead.
I just wondered, when you met with these individuals about their concerns, did you discuss this policy, either in specific or general? And were they, if you did, were they satisfied with these kinds of procedures?
Yes, we did, and I believe they were. What we focused on with this, in addition to the other business we discussed, was the comments that were, if the board puts this into place, then we should never be limited or restricted in talking to both board members and elected officials, and we said that was certainly never the
Great.
intent. This
Yep.
was to sort of set a best practice kind of request in place, and it's helpful for the board, for the administration, and for parents, but nothing restricts them from coming to any of you at any time for any matter at all.
That was exactly what I wanted to know. Thank you for that clarifying question. Answer.
Thank you. Board Member Bolter.
Okay, are we ready for a motion? Okay, so I move that we adopt the Utah Schools for the Deaf and Blind Procedures for Resolving Parental Concerns, Draft 3.
Okay, is there second?
Second.
Okay, discussion. Discussion to the motion. Board Member Lisa Cummins.
If I could add an amendment to that motion, that we input 72 hours response time to the parents and then a 10-day meeting with the parents.
Okay, we have a motion for 72. Oh, but before I restate the motion, do you want to, is it 72 hours, which is really three working days, or?
Three working days. 3 day, okay, 3
With
days.
that, okay, before I restate the motion, Board Member, or not Board Member, AAG Buse,
I wonder
3
if I
days.
could just ask for clarification.
yes?
Okay. Is
We
it
want to get a
the-
good motion
Is
on-
the 3 days that you want them to acknowledge receipt of it? Could we make the wording, I just want to make sure that the wording says what your intent is.
Sure.
Is the 3 days to acknowledge to the parent that they've
they've
received
received
the
it, yes.
concern? And then meet and respond within the 10 days?
Correct,
Okay,
correct.
okay.
Okay, so, AAG Buse, you've got your fingerprints all over this. And
Could I
working with-
suggest some
with other
language
words,
that
with
says
everyone else, so-
acknowledge receipt of the concern within 3 days and meet with and respond?
Correct.
Within
Yes, please.
10?
Within 10. Yes.
Can I make a comment, Mr.
Yes.
Chairman?
Well, let me get this on the table. I'm trying to get this on the table. So is your motion,
I can,
Board Member Cummins, so your motion is to insert in there that will acknowledge,
Receipt of complaint,
or their concern, I would probably say concern. and-
concern, okay.
Within 3 working days.
Just 3 days because it's already defined in the document as
Okay.
working days.
So if you get it on a
So just 3
Friday
days.
night,
The document already defines days.
days as working, okay, so 3 days, okay.
could be electronically meet with them if they are in a distant location because they serve students in a large geographic area.
Sure. So,
Yeah.
Okay, as
so
long as
like
you're
a
okay
a
with.
Zoom meeting or a webinar conference. Yep. Yep.
Okay, we're gonna get this on the table, so, Ms. Lorraine, will you restate her motion? Oh, I've got to turn it on. Okay,
Okay, the motion to amend is to add to step 2, to acknowledge receipt of a concern within 3 days and meet and respond within 10 days.
With, say that one more time, please. Yeah, I've got it.
Okay, so it would be to add to step 2, to acknowledge receipt of a concern within 3 days and meet and respond within 10 days.
Okay, we have a second? We have a second. Okay, discussion to the motion. In the queue, okay, right here. Board Member Scott Hansen.
Probably should have addressed this during questions, but I can introduce it as an amendment. I'm looking at 4.3 on retaliation. Just want to clarify
Okay.
that,
So is 4.3,
We need to talk to the amendment.
oh, no,
That's-
I'm sorry.
Okay, we're in the
Yeah,
amendment.
jumped me ahead, yeah.
okay. Speaking to the amendment, Michelle Bolter.
Yes, so the amendment covers step 2, but what about step 3 and step 4, what it also says within 10 days? Do we also want to put within 3 days in step 3 and step 4? I'm just wondering, because the same verbiage is in all 3. Okay.
So it's up
So
to you.
without objection, we'll insert that into those
Okay.
steps.
Without objection. Mhm.
Okay,
Just,
thank you.
Board- AAG Buse.
If you see the language up there, the lawyer in me says, so does the 10 days start at the end of the 3 days or when you got it? So I put that language there, just, I didn't mean, I don't know that you meant that to be 13 days overall.
No, 10
Okay,
days of
so
receipt.
just to clarify that, I hope you're okay with me
Yeah.
adding that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it'll be in all 3.
Okay, without objection for the motion and the second, we'll include that into the steps.
Yes.
Okay, on any other discussion to this particular communication item? Board Member Cindy Davis.
I just wonder if we ought to be careful. What if a parent's schedule or superintendent's out of town? I mean, why are we telling them a date they have to meet with somebody by? They should respond to parental concerns. And the fact that you put 5 days in, I'm sorry, I shouldn't address you,
Yes.
Chair. The fact that they put 5 days in was, I thought was kind of rock star. I'm like, well, you're going to try to resolve that within 5 days. But then they changed it. The last time we met, it was 5. And 10's reasonable too if you're going to try to go through the whole process and resolve. But I just worry about putting the word meet in there. And I mean, there should be a communication that transpires, but I think wonder if we might have domino effects that we don't intend if we put that they're going to meet with people there.
Okay, so the question's on meet, and let me just see if our AG will comment on that.
I understand that concern because the distance that parents are and scheduling. And the intent is that they somehow personally correspond with the parent.
Which would meet kind of the definition of meetings.
So if we could put a definition of meet, that that meeting could be a correspondence through, and you could tell me what would qualify, whether it would be phone call, whether it would be FaceTime.
You need to comment. Yeah. Okay, Superintendent Coleman.
So just to maybe flesh out a little bit what our conversations were between Michelle and I while we were working through this, as Board Member Davis noticed, we recommended 5 days at first. This isn't like a grandma request for us where we need significant time to figure things out. And sometimes it ends up going right to a 10-day deadline with a grandma request because of research and so forth. The way we operate is we like to jump on things immediately and communicate. That's already our MO, and so we thought the simplified language of just respond within 5 days was more than enough. I really appreciate the recommendation for 10 days. It gives more flexibility, if you will. But we even with parents with whom we are trying to set up a meeting or even a phone call. And sometimes it involves multiple people for a situation. It's not always easy to coordinate schedules. And so I agree that it should be consistent between all of the steps, the same process, whatever the board decides on. We're comfortable with any timeline. We would prefer respond within this amount of time. If that's not satisfactory, then the parent goes to the next step. They get to really determine if they're satisfied or not, I think. And so, for what it's worth, that was our input as USDB.
Okay, we have a motion on the table, or an amendment to the motion. Not seeing any. I am seeing. Okay. Board Member Janet Cannon.
So with that in mind, I'd like to amend the amendment to remove the words "and meet." So it would say, acknowledge receipt of the concern or complaint within 3 days and respond within 10 days of initial receipt of the concern or complaint.
Did you get that? Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Who second? Okay. Any discussion to the amendment? To the amendment? Board Member Cummings, you were, let's see, Brittany first. Okay, Vice Chair Brittany Cummings.
Sorry, I was just going to make that same motion. Sorry.
Okay. We're speaking to the amendment. Board Member Lisa Cummins.
I think I'm going to vote no to the amendment because responding is to me is correlation to having received notice that they've seen it. That doesn't help me in response. So to schedule a meeting or to schedule a time when we can when a parent can discuss their concerns would be better to schedule a meet within 10 days. That's why we had put that in. Because the response is automatically in the receipt of acknowledging the complaint or the concern.
Okay. Vice Chair Brittany Cummins.
The intent of this is to communicate to stakeholders a process for which, right, and to set a certain amount of expectation of what's going to go on. And so it's obviously whoever receives the first concern is going to want to resolve the concern, otherwise it's going to go up above them, right? And so to assume that through words we're going to say that you need to solve this problem in a certain way or contact people in a certain way, I think we're getting a little bit outside the purpose of it. So if we use the word respond, it's going to be simplify the policy, but also recognize that whoever gets that, they're going to respond. They want to. They don't want their boss to have to deal with this if they can't. And so it's just recognizing that I think we're putting a lot of weight on something that I think is unnecessary. So I would support the word respond.
Board Member Bolter.
I also, the more I'm thinking about the language and saying within 3 days and meet and respond within 10 days, I do feel like we're putting a lot of restrictions. And like Board Member Cummins said, that, you know, the intent is to try to resolve this as soon as possible. Otherwise, it will go higher and above their heads. And so I'm comfortable with the language as is in the document. I mean, if we want to keep the 3 days, I'm okay with that, but I'm good with how the document is currently. So I'll be voting this down.
Other board? Okay. Board Member Ellis? Elisa? Okay. Board Member Belknap.
Yep, I actually appreciate, I think it's Michelle who's putting this up here, that if there was a definition of meet, it might be helpful. And I actually think that if someone is going to take time to have a concern or a complaint, they deserve the opportunity to meet with. Meet can be by phone, meet can be by any electronic means that it says here, but at least they've had a conversation and or an opportunity to meet with these people. So I really like the word meet in there. And I'd like to add an amendment, please.
We already have an
I'd like to, oh, it has to get approved first, doesn't it?
Yeah, we have
Okay.
an amendment to an amendment. Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions or comments, so I'll have the amendment to the amendment is what's highlighted, correct?
Yes.
To delete the and meet. So it would read, acknowledge receipt of, or concern or complaint within 3 days and respond within 10 days of initial receipt of the concern or complaint. So it's the and meet. So let's vote on that. This is the amendment to the amendment. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
Okay, with the ayes, raise your hand. Board members Cindy Davis, Board member Cannon, Board member Gravitt, Board member Lear, Board member Hanson, Board member Newell, Board member Bolter, Board member Earl, Vice Chair Brittany Cummins. Anyone online want to be recognized?
Linda Hanson.
Aye or nay?
Aye.
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 Did I hear? And I don't think Elisa, well, there's significant, yeah, the motion passes. Okay, so now we are to the amended amendment, which is that. So we're going to vote on that. Any discussion to the amended amendment? Okay. Seeing none, let's vote. All in favor say aye. Oh, hold it, hang on, I'm going to withdraw that. We got some confusion, I think, a little bit. Do we understand what we're voting on today? The amendment was amended to read what we just voted on. So nothing's changed from the previous vote as far as the content of what's being proposed. Okay. All in favor? Okay. Board member Scott Hanson.
Just a clarifying question maybe. So this would be inserted in each step, 2, 3, and 4? Is that what we're voting on?
In all of the steps, that is
Okay.
correct.
And then when it says initial receipt of the concern or complaint, that would apply to when the complaint was initially input on step 2 then, even to step 3 and 4? Or I think that's troublesome wording maybe.
I understood it to mean in this step, within that step.
Okay, is that clear?
Yeah. Because sometimes it starts in it might initiate in step 3, so this is,
Okay, that word initial troubles me, but okay, I understand.
okay, back to the amendment, to the motion, which reads as exactly what was previously voted. We're going to vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, the voting was unanimous, so we have an amended motion. Other proposed amendments or questions? Board member Scott Hanson.
I think now might be the time to go back and look at 4.3. And just a question there. So it says retaliation by any USDB employee. I'm not sure how the
Can we
administrative.
get you closer to the
Sorry.
mic, please? Thank you.
Not sure if the administrative staff would be classified as employees, but it should be inclusive of everyone there. So maybe retaliation by USDB toward any parent for reporting concerns is strictly prohibited and may result in discipline. So my motion would be that we amend 4.3 to say retaliation by USDB toward a parent for reporting concerns or complaints is strictly prohibited and may result in discipline, period.
Second. Strike employee.
What's that?
So strike employee.
That is.
Yeah, I'm striking the up to and.
So you're basically striking, you're taking,
So, I'm sorry.
well, you're taking out.
Yeah, retaliation by USDB toward a parent for reporting concerns or complaints is strictly prohibited and may result in discipline.
Period, so we're striking up to and including termination.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought we were striking employee.
And
What? I'm striking.
And
Again, retaliation by USDB toward a parent for reporting concerns or complaints is strictly prohibited and may result in discipline.
so,
The intent is to broaden that, so it's not limited to employees. And then also, I think termination is probably not the right term when we're dealing with administration. No, just discipline.
okay, this is, we're getting it. It's getting close. It's good to have it on the screen, so.
Sorry, I have to flip back. I can't remember the exact wording. I should have just copied it.
Oh, sorry.
Employees still in it. No.
That's kind of boilerplate.
Is that how you?
It's not up there yet. Just a second.
But it doesn't matter. We're not going to tolerate it no matter what.
Sorry, I'm not as fast as some people.
That's my
I
proposed
think that,
amendment.
is that there now?
Is that your amendment?
That's my proposed amendment, yes.
Okay, we have a proposed amendment. It was seconded by Board Member Bill Knapp. Clarifying questions or amendments to the amendment? Seeing none, the proposed amendment to our amended motion is under 4.3 to read, retaliation by USDB towards a parent for reporting concerns or complaints is strictly prohibited and may result in discipline. Okay, I think we're ready to vote on this amendment. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Voting was unanimous. So we're back to the amended motion. Any other proposed changes? Okay, I'm seeing none, and I'm also looking at the clock. Not this. So I guess we're ready to go back to the amended motion. So what's before the board is to approve the USDB procedures for the motion is to approve the USDB procedures for resolving parent concerns, draft 3 as amended. Okay, let's vote on that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
What's that? Okay. Do you want me to state the motion again? Oh, sorry. Well, I'm not seeing any, I'm looking. Did you want to speak to the motion? Okay, hey, before I call this a vote, the motion that I just stated, we're going to speak to it. Board Member Cindy Davis.
I'll be voting for this motion because the language in this policy now it's informational and it's cooperative, and I just really appreciate the work that has been done since the previous draft to now. So thank you to all those who worked on that.
Okay. Anyone else want to speak to the motion? Okay, let's.
Sorry to interrupt. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. We tried to get you in once before. Is this Elisa?
Can can you just tell me what the motion is on the table? Sorry,
Okay.
I've been disconnected for a minute.
Okay, the motion on the table is to approve the USDB procedures for resolving parent concerns, draft 3, as amended. We have some amendments to draft 3, and that's what we're voting on.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'll call this to vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? No. We have one no. Motion passes. Okay. Thank you. Next up, we'll have the superintendent's report.
Thank you, board members. I have a couple things listed here, and then happy to answer any additional questions you might have about anything else. First, Chairman Huntsman asked if I would report back on our discussion last month with the chair of the advisory council, Karen Harrop, who came in and chatted with you about the recommendations regarding the toddler group. We've implemented those recommendations where we've offset the two groups slightly so they can choose individual time just in their modality or combined time, both. We've received a very strong response back from the others in that group, and we've told them just to be patient. We're piloting this for a few more weeks, and we'll take their information and just kind of see how things go from them. So we didn't switch back immediately or anything. We're going to just kind of follow through. The advisory council discussed it again in their recent meeting, and they're aware as well. And so Chair Huntsman may speak with Chairman Harrop and get feedback from her, have her come back or whatever at that time. But we're just proceeding with their recommendations as they did for now.
And we'll have Chair Harrop to our next meeting next month.
Great. The next item is our annual spring planning process. I just wanted to let you know how that goes each year. Some of you are fairly new. What we do is we essentially disassemble the entire agency every spring after the legislature gives us our budget. We take it apart and we put it back together one piece at a time, completely dependent upon the individual needs of each child according to their IEPs and our programmatic needs and so forth. And so we're doing that right now, and it's actually gone very, very well this year. It's nice that Carl has been guiding this process just like a champ. I keep checking in on him and saying, "Are you sure everything's okay?" He says, "Yes." Our program principals and directors and our superintendents and so forth have just come together with all the information we've needed and given us really good numbers to work with. And so we're right in the middle. Well, actually, we're close to the end of that. We will have the enrichment fund recommendations for the advisory council in their next meeting. In fact, we're ready to send that to them now. And then they will have their recommendations that we'll bring to you after they approve it. We will also have the entire budget ready to go, I think, within the next month. And so that's my report on that. We also include all the building needs, and as we get closer to the end of the year, we'll have a better idea of our one-time carry-forward money that we use for projects that need to be done like that. And it'll be smaller than last year, but we got a lot of good, big facility and capital projects done last year, so we're in pretty good shape. I think it'll be sufficient for our needs.
Okay, before we get to questions and comments, Superintendent, can you introduce
thank you.
Your staff that's
I'm sorry, I totally forgot to do that. Next to Carl is Karen Borg, who is the director of our Blind PIP program. Karen is a champion and a survivor. She is the only director who is still at USDB that was there when I was appointed by the board 6 years ago. And so she is awesome. And she's here. This, I guess, could be the third part of my my little superintendent's report to tell you why neither of the associate superintendents are here. Karen is here representing Carolyn, who just got married on Saturday. So she is traveling in Europe with her new husband and for a couple of weeks, and it was very exciting. Her whole staff was there. It was a great time this weekend. And Michelle, Superintendent Tanner, is in Peru currently with our deaf school students. That was their study abroad trip for this year, and they are having a tremendous time. They went to Machu Picchu 2 days ago and Lima yesterday and should be flying home today or tomorrow. We did have one student who ended up in the hospital for a couple days because of oxygen problems way up high and a little bit of pneumonia that she didn't realize she had when she left on the trip. Thought it was just a head cold, but she's fine. We've been in contact with her parents, and she's doing great. In fact, I mentioned to Superintendent Tanner on the phone, I said, this right here is why we require the associate superintendent to go with either of the groups, because you have authority to do whatever is needed for those children while you're there. And she had our director, Martin Price, also, and so he was able to continue with the kids, and Michelle stayed right at the hospital. She said actually the beds they have in their hospital rooms are better than the hotel beds they had at the hostels they stayed in. So it wasn't all bad. But things are fine. Things are good, and it was very handled very professionally while we were there. We got great service. So anyway, we're grateful Karen was here in case you had any questions that we needed real experts to answer. So thank you for reminding me of that, Chairman Huntsman.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments for the superintendent? Seeing none, thank you. At this point, board members, I'm going to item 7. I'm seeking a motion to go into executive session for the purpose of discussing the character, competence, or physical or mental health of individuals. So moved. Second. Have a second. It's a roll call vote. We'll start with board member Davis. Yes. So those online, find a board member and come in on the phone because this won't be online. We're going into executive session, so we'll ask all staff and with the exception of our AAGs to stay. Thank you.